Hey, so welcome everybody or anybody who's here this week. We have what could be an exciting, interesting chat today because we have three very local focused breweries from maybe expanding their focus over the COVID and all of that. But we have with us here, we've Paul from Higgins Ale Work in Munich, who are people up here. We have Etienne from Kaapse Brewers in Rotterdam. And we have Miguel from Huskie in Malta. And to be honest, they're three differing amounts of knowledge about what brewing's like in all of them. So we also have selection beers. So if anybody's here wants to, if they're here live, you can raise your hand. There's a thing at the bottom. If you're on Facebook Live, I'll be checking in out there for comments. So I'm just make sure that people are there. And we're just going to chat as usual for about an hour and see where we get to and see how much beer we drink and how much we just chat. So I don't know who will start. Maybe Etienne, we can start with you because I have at least I think I have a little bit more knowledge about the Netherlands beer market than I probably do about Malta or Germany. So it gives me a grounding that I can pretend I know something. You're in Rotterdam. You've been there for what, 6-7 years?
We started in 2014, so 7 years here. It's right. Normally would have had our 7-year anniversary last May, but due to COVID, we couldn't host the festival.
You do have a festival every year, do you?
Yeah, normally we have 2 festivals. In May we have our anniversary festival. And in August we have our BAF, Beer and Food Festival.
Okay, before we delay, let's pick a beer there. I noticed you sent a number of beers, so maybe you want to pick one you think the others should try while we're talking.
I would say let's start off light and maybe the Kyle, which is our flagship beer. The yellow can, yeah.
Yeah, the brown and yellow one. Excellent.
Looking forward to this. We've been brewing today, so
all right.
Oh, really?
Waiting for a beer.
This one, right?
I think that's the one. Yeah. So you have 2 bars. Is that your main focus?
It always used to be our main focus. We're trying to expand a little bit more nationally and very little bit internationally. But we are very Rotterdam based. Yeah, we started with our proeflokaal, our brew pub, with a very small brew kit, second hand. We only could make 500 liters. And we contracted out the most of the beers we sold in bottles back then. And last year last year, 2020, we had to vacate that premise because the building is going to be renovated, and we were looking for a new spot, and then we found the spot where our brewery is now. And that was also the moment that we decided to invest in an own production brewery, so we can brew our own beers completely in Rotterdam, and we moved over to Kent as well with the new brewery. But yeah, we started with our own bars, and we first started with making a volume which we could sell in our own bars before we bought the brewery. Yeah.
Right. So is most of your stuff still on tap, or is it now being replaced by, well, I suppose COVID has thrown it out, but if it wasn't for COVID, like, would it be mainly still through the bars, or?
I think it would probably still be our biggest volume, yeah. Like our bars are our biggest customers.
And what's right? And what's the scene like? Because I guess like Rotterdam, okay, I guess it's probably a bit like Ireland and Guinness. Like, I mean, Heineken must have killed everybody, but at the same time, you're close to the Belgian border, so like,
yeah.
So like, was it very monolithic, or was it variety? What's the craft beer scene like?
It was very traditional in a more Belgium-oriented beer scene. There have always been some smaller breweries in the Netherlands, especially in the south, close to the Belgian border. And they mostly all make a blonde, a triple, a double, a wit beer. So yeah, the traditional Belgian setup. And I think early 2010, 2012, the first craft breweries became bigger and introduced IPAs and stouts and different kind of beers.
Right. So stouts, yeah. Stouts wouldn't be. I'm guessing stouts wouldn't be in any of the Germany or Malta, are they?
A little bit. Stouts are coming around.
Right.
It's a known style. Everybody thinks of a Guinness immediately, but
Yes.
Because that's where it always hits me. Like I talk to people, and Ireland is always the only place I get a third of beer sold in Ireland are stouts. You know, it's like the only three big breweries we had were stout makers, and so it seems to be an outsized influence over here. But yeah, but I like a good stout, so I have to say. But yeah, it's so. I mean, what do you think of this beer? Because I noticed one of the things about this is that you have a lot of beers you sent. You sent one which was 10%, but the rest were kind of lighter. Is that more typical? That
I think I sent mostly light beers. I sent the Calimero, the Micro, and sent one can of the Lenny, an Imperial IPA. I think we sell more of the lighter beers because people tend to drink more of them. But we do also brew bigger beers, but they don't sell as swiftly as lighter beers.
okay. Yeah, 1 second. I just gotta make something here on this because it's going a bit funny. So, what do you think of the rest? We have like, what do you know about the kind of the Rotterdam beer scene, or do you know much at all?
Sorry, what was the question?
No, I'm just wondering what the others kind of think, or how much you know about Rotterdam and beer.
I personally, I don't really know the beer scene there. I could say this beer would do well in Munich. It's got a nice malty backbone to it. It's certainly great sessionable beer. But yeah, the scene in Rotterdam, I'm not familiar. But I hope to get there soon.
Well, hopefully we'll all be able to travel soon. That's the hope. So so Rotterdam. I mean, Rotterdam and Munich obviously have big populations, but Malta's kind of smaller. I suppose you're the smallest of the lot, are you? And the newest.
Yes.
What's the scene down there? You know,
So basically, in Malta there was one main brewery. It's been from the 1920s. So it has dominated the whole beer scene. But lately, we are two craft breweries as in Malta. So, but it's tough to change the how to say the drinking habits and people's knowledge about beer. It's like everyone drinks the same lager, and it's like when you introduce something which is more tasteful and more higher alcoholic content, not all people appreciate it. It's a slow process.
Right. I suppose Malta is also what would be pretty heavily wine.
Definitely, obviously, wine is drank at most dinners and lunches. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had who was it on? Yeah, Alessandro from Croatia. They were on from Bura last week, and he was saying it's a big thing that you have to be. You can't be too adventurous in Croatia. You have to accept. He can't go very hoppy. He can't experiment a lot. He has to kind of take it step by step because the wine just influences the taste so much.
There is the craft beer movement, which are open to trying new things, etc. But in a population of 500,000, it's only a few thousands.
Right. Yeah. So would most of your beers be to tourists then?
No. In reality, that's why we have 3 different beers to try to, sell to different people. So one of our pale ale, the Mosaic pale ale, it's quite a light pale ale.
Okay.
It's not very hoppy. So that's not really aimed at the tourists. But definitely, yes. I think if I had to estimate, there's a large portion, it's tourist sales anyway.
Right. So yeah, I suppose with 500,000 people, there's a certain, there's only a certain amount you can sell to the. And like I said, if it's only a few thousand people out of that who are really into beer, then you've got a small market you can, that you can target really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would this like? You have stronger beers down there. So do you think this one will go down well in Malta, or like the one we're drinking now?
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got an amazing aroma. Very good beer.
And you said this is one of your best sellers, is it?
Yeah. This is our flagship beer. It's also the house beer of our big bar on the peninsula of Katendrecht, which is the peninsula in the middle of the city of Rotterdam, where we started. And this has always been the house beer. And it's this one, and the second one is our Saison. It's called Harry, and that sells really well in our bars as well, because everybody who asks for a wit beer or a blonde or a triple, we say we don't have that, but try our Harry, and that's sort of the beer that catches all the traditional beer drinkers.
Okay,
and this is the craft beer minded people beer, a nice sessionable IPA, malty but hoppy, not too bitter, not too strong, nice thirst quencher.
Right. Yeah, Saisons are becoming very popular, aren't they?
Sorry?
Saisons are becoming, they're really coming into their own these days. They're starting to become very popular.
Yeah.
Is that the same up in Munich, or like what's the Munich scene up there? How can you have Saisons? That's the other thing I'm guessing. Germany is so strict on what you can have. You can't
right. It's an interesting group now because we all have our dynamics. I'm sitting across from the Spaten brewery, and Loven brewery is down the street. So rather than a wine industry, we have the old brewery industry that we compete with. Not compete. We offer totally different styles than that. Typically, our styles are ales, Obergäriges beers. We don't make lagers or Weiss beer because there's enough around. Though I did send a Maibach. It's rare we do that, but it's an Obergäriges Maibach. So if we do something, it's always a little bit different. For our brewery, we don't want to compete with the big lager breweries at all. We're trying to offer something different. And Saison is a style that is starting to become popular here. And next week or 2 or 3, we're going to brew a Saison with Edelflower. We're going to collect them this week or 2, hopefully. And yes, it's not Reinheitsgebot, but occasionally we will make beers that are not within the Reinheitsgebot. And we don't call it a beer then, we call it something different.
And is that strict, like that you cannot call it a beer, or you can brew anything you want to, but you don't call it beer?
Yeah, we certainly don't call it beer. In Munich, it's probably the toughest city as far as enforcement of the Reinheitsgebot. It's a very traditional city. They have the big breweries. One is across the street from me. So we're pretty cautious, but we've not had problems by brewing a beer and, put all the ingredients in there that are in the beer, a pumpkin ale, for example, and we don't call it beer. We call it an alcoholic drink from a malt basis. It's a German word, alkoholisches Getränke auf Malzbasis. And we don't want to get in trouble with this Reinheitsgebot, but we're finding it not as enforced as maybe it used to be.
Right.
But that could change. So.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that kind of Germany turned out not, that it's took people to come in from outside to introduce kind of what hops can do and what all the basic ingredients can do, because you'd think that when you're so limited that's what you'd be experimenting with all the time, that there would have been a huge variety of
yes. And what we do, we mostly are Reinheitsgebot, but of course the beers are totally different. The Sunshine Smile, for example, that's with Kveik, Hefe, yeast, and I like to tell our customers, yes, it's a Reinheitsgebot beer, even though it's a big fruit bomb. It's still only hops and water, yeast, and the other adjunct, not an adjunct, wheat and malted rye or malted oats we use. But everything is malted if it's in Obergäriges beer, top fermenting beer. A lager beer, you must stick with only malted barley. That's the stipulation. So we like to play within those parameters, and people are often surprised it's still within a Reinheitsgebot category with only those ingredients. So it has opened a lot of eyes to what can be done with your basic ingredients, different styles.
Yeah. And is there much of a craft beer scene in Munich? I mean, it's a big city. Presumably there must be some interest there.
There is. We're probably the slowest city in Germany. Berlin, of course, has surpassed us. Many, as you know, big breweries are there, from Brewdog to Wasstone, and a lot of different microbreweries. In Munich, we have about 15 to 20 small breweries, but they don't have their own system. We've got the 6 big breweries. Giesinger is one of the first new ones. Crew Republic was a new one, but they've moved outside of Munich. Hopfenhocker has a brewery, and maybe one other. Most others are gypsy brewing or brewing outside of the city of Munich. But there are about 15 different brewery labels. Test Brewery, for example, they brew on our system here. We're very small. We're only 200 liters. While we took the approach of let's test the market first. But the population of Munich, it's 1.5 million. It's diverse. We have a lot of young people, a lot of expatriates, and so it's a good mix. And people are learning, and it is a big learning process. Like Malta, with a wine-based industry, we're trying to get people off of lagers and onto some other beers. So it's been a challenge, but we found that it's going well. And we would, yes, like to expand also from above 200 liters. Or gypsy brew as well. Contract, gypsy, right. Not contract.
Okay, where do you sell it all then? Is it in, like, you don't have a bar, so do you sell it through bars? Do you sell it through...
We sell it, there are only a very few craft beer bars as well, so that's also a challenge in Munich. A lot of the bars are tied already to the big breweries. They're licensed like England or Ireland were in the old days. So it's difficult to find the markets, but there are some craft beer drink markets that we sell to. We sell from our shop, from the brewery directly. During the pandemic, during lockdown, that was really our only source of income, was direct sales. Everything was closed, which made us pivot as well. We started bottling more and forcing us to look at the other market. And yeah, we're working on some kind of bar where we could sell the beer directly and through a bar. Real estate in Munich is also pretty high.
Right.
So it's a limiting factor. So we went in with a low-cost model, test the market, and now we're looking to expand.
How long are you in business?
3 years.
Just before the
registered.
Before everything went mad.
Yeah, but before that, I was. We found a place and we started home brewing there and testing the beers and the place and the market, and yeah, we were quite comfortable to give it a start.
Right.
And so yeah, it was good.
And what's your best seller?
Secret Idaho, it's called. It's like Sunshine Smile, but it's not using a Kveik yeast. It's more of a Conan strain, a mixed Conan strain. And with the market here, it's not a true New England style that you would get in New England. That's really a 7 or 8% hop bomb with a burn in the throat. We use a little more malt, caramel malts, Abbey malt as well, just to give it more malty backbone, which the market here, I think, was ready for at the time. But now the market is now changing. Also, people are brewing these heavy New England fruit bombs, not fruit bombs, great hoppy beers with tart and typical New England style. And yeah, it's coming around as well.
And you said, you said you mainly bottle it. So is that the market that it has to be in a bottle, or?
No, we are also definitely the only ones in Munich with. I'll show you these.
Yeah, I saw that on your website.
The Crowler can. I got one of these machines from during one of the fairs in Munich, like Drink Tech or Braubeviali, and I have some cans shipped over occasionally that we use at events, and we sell them to go. It was good for the pandemic until the pandemic stopped all shipments of these cans. So we package in bottles, 1 liter bottles. We do growler fills for the local neighborhood people with 2 liters. I have a filling machine to try to, satisfy different tastes. And it's small. It's a very small bottle filler, the 0.33 single-headed. So it's time-consuming, but it has allowed us to get the product out to a lot more people.
Yeah, so at the end, that's something that I've seen a lot of here as well. I didn't realize so much in Ireland that nearly all the craft breweries were selling on tap, and it's really changed. That they've all gone, obviously online and selling through distribution. Is that the same for yourselves, though? Is it? It's forced you to, or has it sped up that thing you were talking about, like of trying to expand out of Rotterdam?
Yeah, I think the first lockdown, we had 2 lockdowns in the Netherlands. We're just getting out of the second one, but in the first lockdown in early last year, we decided we wanted to have a web shop for quite some while, but it was always on the bottom of the list. And yeah, with the lockdown, that came on top of the list. So we set up a web shop, which has been doing quite well. And that also made it easier for us to sell our beer outside of Rotterdam. So we got a lot of orders from people from Amsterdam, from Utrecht, or other places out of the Netherlands who wanted to buy Kaapse beers. So the web shop really helped us setting foot outside of the city. And also with the new brewery, we were a little bit more flexible. We could do, it was easier to do specials. And that worked really well with the retailers. Because the retailers, in the Netherlands, they want cans. So we switched to cans. So that was a win. And they want specials because they want something new every month for the specialty beer shops. And that really helped getting our product out of the city. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I've seen. I suppose Well, I've talked to some of the others. Yeah, the demand for just new beers all the time. Like, how do you get that? I've been told trying to get people back to buying the same beer twice is almost impossible anymore. That you just have to. Maybe it's different in a bar because you have a certain number of taps, but this selling through shops and through distribution, it seems to be that you've got to be producing things, new products. They'll just come, try it one time, they'll recognize your name, and they'll try your name again the next time, but it'll be a different beer.
Yeah. I think people in bars drink very differently or choose very differently than when they're in the shop. In the shop, they want something new to add up to their tap list. And in a bar, they will come for a few beers, and they will start off with something they know is nice, and that will quench their thirst, and then they'll move their way through the tap list in a session. So in a bar, it's more easy to sell your core range beers,
Right.
and that's what we've seen during the pandemic. That our core demand for the core range went a little bit down, but we had more demand for specials, so we brewed more different beers instead of the same beers.
Right. Sorry, maybe we should. Is anybody ready? Or I think you're ahead of me there on opening a new one. Have you? You've all gone ahead of me.
I've only
Yeah, I
opened the
opened the
one.
Sunshine Smile.
Yeah, me too.
Which one?
Cheers.
Sunshine Smile?
Sunshine Smile.
I'll grab that too.
I actually think I drank that the other night. I did. I drank that last night. Well, I'll stay on
You
what
couldn't wait?
I'll have one then.
Go on.
Lost
Yeah,
my opener.
I was doing research last night, so I tried one of each.
Good.
So, so how would you think this is obviously stronger than the first one we tried, but it's an average like what 6%. It's not going to go over the top or anything.
No, this is 6.3% alcohol. The hops are primarily Vic Secret and Idaho 7, which is the parent beer of this is Secret Idaho, which is Vic Secret and Idaho 7. I like the Kvike yeast, so we did nearly the same recipe with this yeast. And unfortunately, the beer Secret Idaho is not ready to send to you. It would have been fun to compare, but they really do taste similarities, but also quite a different taste with a Kvike yeast. It's more.
Which Kvike strain do you use?
This was a Hopsberg. I'm probably not saying that right. It's not Voss. It's Hopsberg. I'll have to look it up. I'm sorry.
No worries.
518 on the WLP. So this has also been selling very well in Munich. I was surprised. I thought it'd be too tart and too fruity for some of the audience, but in fact it's getting some pretty good ratings. And as you had mentioned before, we as well we're making different beers all the time. The base beers, Secret Idaho, we always try to keep in stock, or this one, a black IPA, and then a American Pale Ale. That's also a nice, easy drinking beer. I'd say the American Pale Ale Alpental, it probably comes close to the Carel, with a bit of maltiness to it and not too overpowering in the bitterness. But yeah, it's been fun to do all these different beers, and at our size, we also are prepared to do that.
I also noticed that your label is sort of made in a way to ease that process, because
Yes,
this is like a sole comment. You just had this one.
yes, our label is the same, and that was exactly the reason. When we had to pivot to bottling, we used one label to keep the cost down, and we were changing so often. We're just doing the stickers For the primary beers, like the black IPA, we have a special label. The Cuban, it's a black IPA rum barrel that has a special label. Secret Idaho will get a singular label as well as we expand the product line. We find
In
out
fact, when I opened the package, I said, you
They're all
sent
the same.
3 of the same. And then I thought,
yeah, it's
no, but it's until you recognize where you have to look, sort of, and then it's okay.
yeah, it does take some time as well to educate the market and as well the bars or drink markets. So it's a step we're taking to change as well for the bigger primary beers.
It's the one thing that limits me from varying my beers because of the labels, exactly like that. So
it's really difficult, yes. And the can, for example, in Germany, cans in Germany you need to register for a return system, which costs about 500 euros per year. I don't know about Rotterdam or Malta for the recycling process with a barcode, and anybody can bring a can anywhere for a 25-cent fund. We are planning to switch to cans also. Eventually, we need to sign up for this program, which is going to be another probably €1,000 cost per year for us. So it has its own costs, where the bottles like this one is a returnable. There's an 8-cent fund in Munich. So everything is controlled pretty good for the recycling program. And in Germany, actually, a lot of people just like bottles.
But that's something that seems to be almost everywhere in Europe, because, I mean, America, it's all cans. Ireland has pretty much switched over to cans. The UK has switched. But it seems to be very, like, places like Belgium just will not use cans at all. There's 2 or 3 out of the breweries who have cans. It seems to be a real resistance.
Yeah, we have a lot of discussions here regarding cans. I mean, yes, I think the best is if you use a reusable package, which we do offer that. But if someone like Kaapse wants to ship their beers, shipping bottles versus cans, the weight in that product and the volume probably offsets some of the carbon. You know, we need to do more studies in that regard to educate the audience. Yes, you want some U.S. beers in bottles. That's a lot of weight. It's a lot of fuel spent to ship glass. So in the U.S., cans and everything are just flying everywhere, which helps save some fuel if you're shipping a lighter package.
But it's the same in Ireland, because, like I said, a few years ago it was all craft was bottles, and now it's cans. And the customers want it. I thought it was just that it was more convenient for the distributors and that, but the customers want the cans, and they seem to get really excited when something appears in a can.
Here it's a mix of the market. The younger people are okay with cans, and we do have a return system that I think people can feel good about. It's certainly costly for us. It's 25 cents per can. Okay, we might get some of that back, but to join the program, you're paying at least 500 euros every label you change. It's an expense, but I think it's better for the environment if everything's getting recycled. So,
and down in Malta, you're sorry, Miguel, you're also bottles.
Yes, but one, because it's easier to set it up at first. So to start with, obviously, glass is easier. I'm also bottle conditioning, but I guess it can be done in cans too. But yes, primarily it's because
Indeed, if your audio is off.
My audio is off.
I hear you okay, Miguel.
Yeah, no, I can hear you too.
Yeah.
I don't hear you.
Okay.
Maybe you muted me.
Something wrong on my side.
Let me mute myself.
No, I can hear everyone anyway, so.
Me too.
Okay.
And You can hear us?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Etienne?
I can't hear Miguel.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Huh, strange.
It's a bit strange, yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, sorry, Eddie. What I was just explaining is that they use bottles down in Malta, and it's a kind of a cultural thing as well.
Yes, people think that it's an inferior, the same beer being served in can and bottles. Most of the people would prefer the one in glass, the glass bottle.
Now, I must admit, I came around to cans for home and that, but if I went to a restaurant and they give me, draw the glass and the bottle, I'm okay. But if they brought me a glass and a can, I'd still feel a bit. It just doesn't have the thing if you're out in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Or even in a bar, like drinking out of a can, it just seems a bit odd. But I don't mind it.
Yes,
from a bottle.
and we sell a lot to high-end restaurants. So that serving it in a can at a high-end restaurant, maybe we're still not there yet.
Yeah, it's certainly in Germany. It's the same with the stigma of a can means a cheap beer for a lot of people, except the craft beer people. And for me, our brewery, we went to bottles as well. We wanted cans, but the market was not set up in Europe for canning at first when we started. And bottles were just easier to get the equipment, the cleaning facilities, so we stuck with that. But now I see the change with cans becoming more prevalent in other parts of Europe. So I think that floodgate is now open for cans with all the U.S. canners selling their products here and Italy manufacturers. So the change is coming, for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
So I have one request. Miguel, is there a beer of yours you could recommend for us to open?
While Black IPA maybe, the Zuta.
Black
it's up
IPA?
to you. What would you like to drink? A light beer or?
At this point, it doesn't matter. whatever you recommend is.
It's
6.3.
6.3 as yours. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the purple one.
Okay, I think we should all at least get one beer in from each other while we're talking, and I'd like to do that.
So let me tell us about Malta. It's obviously, like I said, it's a small enough market. But is there you started what, 2 years ago?
Commercially, 2 years ago.
But you were homebrewing before that.
Just before the pandemic struck, basically.
And how did
2 months earlier.
And how did that go? Like how did you get around to dealing with them?
This is great.
No,
yeah, that's another one I drank.
The pandemic slowed us really down. I mean, I stopped brewing for a couple of weeks and months. No one wanted to drink, or at least not no one, but our sales went really down. And but now, it's summer and we're opening up again.
Sorry, was that because you were mainly selling to restaurants and obviously they closed, or is there many bottle shops, many places people can actually go?
No, in Malta there are 2-3 bottle shops.
Yeah.
Obviously, we sell it at the supermarket as well, but people weren't even going to the supermarket. So, yeah, the sales naturally slowed down in that time. But we sold to end customers, but as I said, the craft beer movement in Malta is not that large.
Yeah. And do you...
So... Mm-hmm.
No, sorry, go on. I interrupted.
No, I was going to describe the beer.
Tell us the beer.
There's nothing wrong with a black IPA in summer. It's great. Really good.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the things that the restaurateurs tell me, that it's hard selling it in summer. Right now it's 36 outside.
Okay.
So it's not a summer beer, strictly speaking. So yes, that is the most sort of adventurous beer we have. It's not that adventurous, but it's the one. It's like we wanted to have a pale ale, an IPA, and another one that's the the craft beer movement would enjoy.
Yeah,
So
it's nice to introduce people to something really different. Here we had a black IPA as well in Munich, and there was a lot of resistance because people see black and they think of Guinness immediately, and it's like, oh, I don't like Guinness, but it's a black IPA is much different. It's can be very drinkable, like this, little malty, nice hop, and it's actually quite refreshing.
No, like I said, I drank it last night, and it was like I said, there was that little. It was very hoppy, very fresh, but there was that little tinge of a stout just after this, just to give
a little
that,
bit.
just to give it that little extra. I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
And so that doesn't sell very well, though you said it. Well, compared to your other ones, it's not the.
no, it does not that it doesn't sell very well, but it's not like a pale ale or an IPA, you know.
Yeah.
Even because it's stronger as well.
And do people come along there? Sorry, given the market and given Malta has a big tourist market, do people come into Malta and do they look for a local beer?
Yes, definitely. But you have to see if the restaurant there will give him a macro beer or a local macro beer or a craft beer.
Right.
As Paul said, most of the bars or restaurants have a contract with the largest breweries, so they cannot sell any other beers.
Right.
No?
Yeah, I'm wondering how that will go when things open up, Patty, and you might have a better idea, because what they're worried about here is the breweries aren't, like the bars aren't tied to the breweries as such, but they're offering incentives to get the bars back up and running and that, and it's assumed that there'll be kind of conditions on that. Do you think it's going to be the same in? No, what we're saying about is like in bars being tied and restaurants and that they being tied to the macros, and it's the same in Ireland. It's hard for people to break in, but they're really worried that what seems to have happened during the pandemic is because people weren't going to bars, they were buying online or from shops, that it increased the craft beer market and awareness of it. But that if they're going back now, the big brewers are offering in money to the bars to kind of help them get back on their feet and to help them do this, but they're setting conditions around it and buying the taps. There won't be.
That's definitely also happening here. A lot of breweries, the big breweries, helped out bars during COVID by helping out, delaying on the payments for bar owners, and now they're very aggressive in if you want. For us, it's harder to get on draft than other bars if they're owned by a big brewery or. If they work with a big brewery, so it's getting a bit harder for us. But it's also one of the reasons we, from the beginning, always have our own bars for getting the beer to the people. Yeah.
Right. And Munich is.
Etienne, is it Etienne? Do you feel that the locals appreciate drinking local beer, or they're sort of always drinking macro beer? It's not. Is it the same as in Malta, or there is more like awareness that they want to drink local craft beer?
Did you hear any of that, Etienne?
No.
So Miguel was asking, do you see that there's a demand by people to drink local beer, or are they just happy with macro, or is there a demand for Rotterdam beer?
In the Netherlands, there's a local became big the recent few years. So a lot of people want local beer, and 7 years ago when we started, there was one other brewery, so we were the second one in Rotterdam. and now there are about 15 breweries, physical breweries, and a couple of gypsy brewers in Rotterdam. So it's really booming.
Yeah, it seems to be taking off everywhere. I mean, it's amazing. Like say, compared to say Munich, Germany, you'd think that would have been where all the craft kind of experimentation would have been, because we have such limitations on what you can use. But really, why I still trying to understand why it took America to kind of explode it everywhere.
Yeah, I started home brewing in 1990, giving my age away, because the beer was so, let's say, just say special. We didn't like it, so we brewed our own beer out of necessity. And the first time I came to Europe is when I learned, okay, we had a Guinness then, and maybe a couple of Belgian beers, Chimay, for example, but not much else. When I first came to Europe and really tasted a good German beer or the good English ales, it was quite an eye-opener of, this is not what I was told was beer for many years. And then most of the people that I worked with in the US were brewing beer, and so I started that. And I mean, the whole movement in the US was grown from home brewers. And of course, the pioneers of Sierra Nevada and Harpoon Brewery, Sam Adams, they certainly started opening up things. So there was a lot of knowledge, a big knowledge base in beer in the US, where Germany and Munich, people had good beer. All the big breweries here in the city, they're not bad beers. They're not like what I would call a bad beer, commercial beer in the US. A commercial beer in Munich produced here it's not a bad beer. It's so it's tough to break into that market, or it's a different way to get into it. It's not through a crowd of home brewers. But that said, there's also a big home brewing movement starting here as well. There's a lot more interest. We're selling hops here as well in the shop. And so people are interested, and the more knowledge that they gain on beer, I think helps everybody, every small craft brewer. It just expands your need or want for knowledge, and that's through different types of beers. Like how I experienced it first was to find out that there are differences around the world, and it's really fun to try a different beer and do it yourself. And then the best way to learn is by tasting other people's beers. And thanks for your samples, Etienne and Miguel. I still hope to get to the brewery.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah. And then did Malta have any home brewing base 5-10 years ago, Miguel?
I highly doubt it. Highly doubt it. But I started home brewing first, and then got immersed into brewing and opened commercially.
Yeah.
So my brewery is only 500 liters.
It's good size to start. Mine's a bit small.
I want it bigger now.
Yes.
Everyone wants bigger. Everyone wants more.
Yeah. But that said, we still wouldn't want to go too big. We want to keep control. For us, quality is probably one of the biggest drivers. We don't want to contract. We want a gypsy brew, but not above 1,000 liters even, in order to keep the control and find the right system. Because if one starts putting out beer that's not really good, then you're going to lose customers as well. So we're pretty always trying to keep control of the quality, and at this size, it's easy to do. The turnover is fast enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you get people who have a bad craft beer, it puts a bad label on everybody, and people won't come back. So, but there's enough out there now where I think people are learning that, yeah, there's different tastes, different beers, different styles, different qualities, and it's finding what you like. So,
and like Etienne, you said I'm just bringing in here on the different types and the capacities and batches. You're doing a lot of kind of batch stuff now, like different batches, kind of every couple of weeks? Beers, every few weeks, or
well, we are just a normal production. We brew usually 3 days a week, every week, and if there's room, if we have enough of a core range and there's room, then we'll do a collab, or we do what we call the concepts. That are the specials. Yeah.
okay. But the recipe are pretty much, well, let's discuss it. So, Miguel, you have your core range, and that's pretty much what you're focused on right now, is it? You're not kind of doing specials every couple of weeks yet.
No, I'm not. No.
And how
I have a couple of ideas, but not yet.
But you have to get up and running first. Yeah, and how about you, Paul? You seem to be kind of in between with that.
We have a core range of about 3 to 4 beers, 3 to 5 even, and we usually run out of stock. We have 4 fermenters, so that's a big driver. The storage capacity on the cold side is also a driver, where we can't produce so many new beers at once. So, but usually three brews per month, 2 to 3 per month only. We're usually trying something new once a month, sometimes even more, depending on the season.
Yeah.
So we have a core of about 5, and then a seasonal pumpkin ale, the black IPA, but always something a little bit different. And people want different.
Yeah. No, I'm amazed that people I've had a few, especially there's 2 Latvians, Arpus and Hoppala. They're turning out like they because they're all export, because they're very export focused. It's into the thing, like they have to turn out a new beer every week, and that's it. Like I just don't know how they do it. Right?
It would be nice to have a tap room like Etienne or Miguel. I don't know if you have a tap room, but to really judge the audience as they drink the beer. We have a delay if it's into a bar or a drink market. The feedback from that is much longer than if you're at the bar and getting that feedback from the customer. Quite quickly, I would imagine, how to change your beer styles and what people are looking for. But it would be a lot of fun too to do that.
What do you see as kind of like fashions? Like, do you see fashions going in the beer? Is that you kind of have to kind of chase a type of beer, or?
We do in Munich. We see a bit of a lag. What's going on between the U.S. and Berlin, and the saisons, for example, are becoming a little more popular in Munich, but it probably happened elsewhere, of course. Saison and as we learn how to brew a saison with available yeasts and experiences, they come into style.
Right.
A black IPA, for example, there were not really hardly any in Munich, but now every brewery is doing one at least once or twice a year. And Etienne, your thoughts on that? I'd be curious to hear it as well.
Can you ask him what size is his system?
I think in the Netherlands, NIPA, New England IPAs are very popular. Yeah. And pastry stouts are very popular. And, but that's more the bee geeks part of the drinkers. And you also have, I think, the normal drinker is more drinking IPA, like the medium drinker. They really discovered IPAs a few years ago, and they love them now. Yeah.
Yeah. And Miguel, what size is your Etienne? What size is your system? That's from Miguel.
We have a 15-hectare brew house with 3 vessel, mash ton, boil kettle, whirlpool, so we can do easily 2 brews in a day. And we have 2 small fermenters for a single brew, and we have 6 big fermenters for a double brew. So,
Great.
Sufficient when you have when you put 2 brews in
a
one
couple
fermenter.
of BBTs, so we can brew very regularly.
Yeah.
We usually package two batches a week, so we can also brew 2 batches a week. Yeah.
Okay, that's.
And how much of that goes into cans versus goes into kegs?
Well, the last 6 months, it was all cans. We were canning everything. But now we're getting a bit back. I think now we're sort of doing 30% in kegs and 70% in cans. And hopefully, when we're back to normal, pre-corona, it was about 60% cans and rest kegs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, is there a big difference in the person? Well, I suppose you kind of implied there is. That there's a big difference between the person who come into a bar and what they drink in a bar versus, what they're selling in cans. Like on cans and a lot of the shops, it seems to be very much you have to tell what hops you're using, what yeast, what malts, and all that. Whereas I guess in a bar you don't have the space to do that. So people are just coming in and are they just looking for an IPA or how does that work?
Well, if they come into our bar, we always made a very big point of we have 30 taps, and we want people to guide them and say, what do you like? You want something sweet? You want something bitter? You want something dry? Something. So we ask a lot of questions what people want, and we give them tasters, and we always try to give them a beer they like. And when we started 7 years ago, people just wanted beer, a pilsner, and so in the beginning it was really hard, and that's why we focused on this way of serving. But now people come for it because they know that they will find something they didn't know they like. Yeah.
And are they coming in and working their way down through a menu, or do they just stick on?
We have a lot of regulars who come especially for the dark beers. Some come from the sours. So yeah, we have people. We try to offer.
Excuse me, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I can hear you again.
Oh, hey!
Hey.
So 30 taps, all of your beer. No other beers.
No. I think about half of it is our beer, and the rest are guest beers.
Fair enough.
So we also have a lot of beers from other breweries from the Netherlands, but also from the rest of the world. Yeah. We try to create a tap list we also enjoy ourselves, of course.
Yep, it's important.
Well, if you get yours into kegs, there's a tap there waiting.
Hand delivered, maybe, if you're willing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So let's get back to the actual beer. Is there any one that you think that we should definitely try? I tell you right now, I am not allowed to try the barrel aged one because my wife will kill me if I drink it.
You can save that one until it gets a little bit cooler out.
Okay.
It's got a long shelf life. It was a fun beer. It was our first barrel aged in a Cuban rum barrel. Let's see, Secret Idaho. I would suggest our beer, the American Pale Ale, just kind of classic. And I'll probably open something else from, let's say, Kaapse or Miguel. The micro, that would have been... Maybe that's too light right now. But
Miguel, you have to do with your two... Are they both blondes or no, both IPAs?
That's a nice one, the Maria.
Okay.
It's the house beer of our restaurant.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll try the Maria because it's not too much alcohol. And Miguel, I'll have to get to yours.
Yeah, well, there's too much beers to drink in one go now, in fairness. We have to try everything. But it's something to look forward to. Like I said, I started last night and I think we're trying some of the ones we were trying. So
You're trying the Maria, Paul?
I have the Maria, yes. And yeah, thanks to all the listeners as well. Hopefully you can get a chance to visit any one of us.
Yeah. Yeah, so how are things opening up out there now? You're all in. Is everything open everywhere? Or?
In Germany, in the last month, things are starting to open up. Outdoor bars, for example, inside has just started to open up a little bit at a certain percentage, 50% maybe. Vaccination rate in Europe is obviously slower than, let's say, the US. My wife is there now. I was there 2 weeks ago, first time, and it's totally different in the US, for example. Mostly everything is open.
Okay.
We stayed still outside when we went out. And yeah, I see the same pattern as US, as here in Germany, where people are outside.
But not inside as much. Yeah.
Not inside and distanced. It's fair enough, but
I think I'll be reluctant enough to go inside for a while.
The beer gardens are open here in Munich as well, but at a reduced capacity with a certain space between the tables, whereas before you used to be very right next to people, but now it's totally different.
And how's that hitting you, Etienne? Are you open inside now, or is it a beer garden? Or
actually, today bars are open inside, so to let people in. The bars have been open for about a month again. And in the beginning, it was from 6 in the morning for some strange reason, because no bar in the Netherlands is open 6 in the morning, till 6 in the evening. And then it went to 8 o'clock in the evening. Last week was 10 o'clock in the evening. And from tonight, there's no the closing times are open to decide ourselves. Yeah.
And how's it down in Malta?
Yeah, just this week, it's our Monday. It's 2 a.m. But it's midnight now.
Okay.
But we have a very good vaccine. I don't know about the rest of Europe, but it's 70% right now.
That's good.
Yeah, you're ahead. So look, I don't know what else. I had some questions here and I forgot to ask them. Let me take a look, see what I had.
Nice beer. Thank you, Etienne. Very hoppy, light.
Good
for
Etienne Maria is
our
sort
weather.
of a New England pale ale.
Yeah. It's a double dry hopped New England ale. I think we canned this just before I sent the box. I think it was the last one I wanted to include in the box that I shipped to you.
Yep, it's really fresh.
That's why I was a bit later with my sending my beers. But this is the house
just
beer.
Just in time.
Yeah, just in time, in the nick of the moment. Yeah.
This morning, so
I like your label too. That's right. I know why you got the name from.
Yeah,
Maria.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite labels.
Yeah. You know, Maltese are a bit religious, so I wouldn't dare do something like that.
Munich as well. It's very Catholic. I don't think I would do that either here. Don't want to upset the locals.
So for a beer like this, what sort of sulfur to chloride ratio would you go for? 2:1?
I think the Maria is 5:3 chloride to sulfur.
5:3 is per second.
Yeah.
Because it's a light beer, maybe.
Yeah.
Nice.
Light, cloudy, very the hop definitely fresh. It's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
The Alpental is also a really nice resiny, hoppy,
Yeah, that was.
fruity.
Thank you. Was brewed to be more classical American, but also a little bit newer, fresher with some of the hops. I can't remember my hop list. Yeah, Columbus Centennial German Amarillo, grown in the Hallertau last year, and Cascade from the Hallertau as well. That's north of Munich, the hop growing region, and a French nugget rather than a U.S. nugget. So it was kind of a mix of big U.S. hops, and then we do try to incorporate some of the local ingredients, especially hops, because they are available. And we are using more local hops and blending them with U.S. type hops, Idaho 7 or the Australian Vic Secret, for example. We're trying to do that a lot more because the region is, we have a lot of hops. Amarillo, for example, it's great U.S. hop, but now they're growing it in the Hallertau, and it's still a great hop. Some differences from the U.S. version, but still a very good hop here. And it's also closely controlled by the owner of that right to the hop Amarillo. I forget the gentleman's name, the family in Washington. So we have some good access to hops here.
Paul, you specify all your hops on the label, which I don't, and Etienne doesn't as well. Like, do you see any benefits, or maybe is it for the beer geeks? You think people are buying it because they see the hop name?
I think the beer geeks appreciate it. We do it really just to educate the audience a little bit on different types of hops, what goes into a beer. Yeast, sometimes I may say a Kveik, for example, versus just yeast. A beer geek, of course, wants to know what yeast, me as well.
Just like I did.
It's important.
Yeah.
So it's more for education, because in Munich, as with any home brewer or people interested in beer, one needs to know what goes into the beer. I think most people don't care. They may care about taste if you're not into home brewing. But slowly, maybe these things sink into people's heads of what's going on in the brewing process. The ingredient selection, obviously, you are selecting ingredients, Etienne and Miguel, that are important, but the consumer probably isn't aware of what's going on in the background. I mean, when Etienne sent his box with a Yakima Chief hop box, the guest brewer in my brewery was all excited, like, "Oh, look at these hops!"
It's happened to me. It's happened to me.
So, yeah, the box of hops would have been great too. So it's part of the process, I think, of learning and teaching the customers what we do to try to make a good beer, a different beer. It's about the quality, and the ingredients, of course, is an important part of it. So that's why I do it. With whatever real estate. I can see why not to do it, because a can with a label, you'd have to change the label every time. I have the flexibility to, all right, if I change the hop, it's okay. I can change my label easily. So there's a cost factor there.
Yeah, you do see it though on a lot of cans now. Like, I mean, they push the type of hops almost as the, instead of a name, they're pushing like it's this hops, and to some extent, yeah, it's almost scary if you don't know, if you're not really into the intricacies of it. It's scary. Like, how do I know which one to choose, because I don't know? It's a paralysis of choice thing, So it's a balance, I think. And especially if you take into account, people just telling you what malts they have and what yeasts they have, you're just like, what on earth do I buy? I'm educated enough to choose.
Yeah, and for me, with the size of our brewery, we can change ingredients, and the flexibility of the labels, as well as the hop contracts. We don't have big hop contracts. We are beholden to what we can get in a quantity that's reasonable for our size of a brewery. So sometimes we have to go smaller batches of hop buys, and if we don't like the quality, we'll change the hop to something similar or different, or different completely. Some hops we get at bulk. Vic Secret, Idaho 7, for example, we buy that in bigger bulk and have it on hand, but a lot of the other hops are changing. We use Pro Hops a lot also. It's a platform where a brewery can sell their excess hops, or the hop farmers direct to breweries. And so we do use that website a lot. And we also sell their hops extra that they may have in a smaller package. We are selling those. So that was a good flexible advantage for us to get smaller packaging and also sell that to home brewers. Then we don't have to buy 5 kilo packages, for example. So that was pretty good for us.
Yeah. And sorry, you've mentioned like that you picked a couple of different yeasts. Are you, Miguel or Etienne, do you have, play around with yeasts, or are you kind of focused on changing one ingredient and learning that one to the best, or you play around with yeast and all of that as well?
We use a fair amount of different yeast strains for different beers, and I think in the core range alone of 9 beers we use 4 or 5 different strains, and then we have the concept beers and collabs. We like to use different yeasts as well. We have a lot of beers we brew once a year, and they have specific strains. So yeah, we like to play around with yeast because it's one of the most important sources of flavor in a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my
How about you,
case,
Miguel?
I started out with the same yeast for the 3 core beers, but in the future I don't want to limit myself, as Etienne was explaining. Like, we have 4 ingredients and I'm limiting 1 already. So yes, that was one consideration I made when I decided on the 3 beers.
Right.
And so yours is get those ones right and then go and play with.
Yes, especially because they were hoppy beers, so I didn't really want a yeast, flavor forward yeast flavors from yeast. Also, coming again on the topic of describing the hops, our pale ale is a smash beer. So it's like a combination of education and specifying what the ingredients are, because it's 100% Mary Sotter and the Mosaic pale ale. But as you know, limiting yourself, because then you have to buy Mosaic at any cost.
Yes, which is usually a lot.
It wasn't very clever.
No, sometimes you got to do that. It's a great hop, and it's expensive, but it's necessary. In our brewery we use about 4 different yeast strains, typically 4 to 5, and we always harvest and use it for the next beers. We also try to use the same yeast for a totally different style, and in order to limit the number of yeast we use, we mostly use wet yeast, fresh, not dry. So that puts another burden on us. We're tiny. It's me and another person part-time, so we're growing yeast. We're chasing yeast all the time with the brew schedule and growing the yeast and saving it. And then getting fresh deliveries of yeast in Germany is challenging. Often, for example, I was in the US 2 weeks ago. I did buy just some homebrew size packets that I will propagate here, save some costs, and we're doing that all the time. But we're always searching for different yeast. I think it's a key to try to stay ahead of the competition. We're also mixing the yeast, and it's probably one of the most important parts of the whole business. And we never see yeast on ingredients. It's pretty rare.
Yeah,
that people do that.
Yeah, the only time that you mostly see yeast is just it's either if they're using Kvike, and that's it. That's the only.
Or the Kvike, for example, we use it in the Sunshine Smile, the beer you've tried. We also use the same yeast in a blonde ale. We just lower the temperature down to 23, 24 degrees, and it doesn't produce all the esters, and it's pretty clean, neutral. So you then get the possibility to make a stronger beer with that yeast, and then a totally different beer at a lighter alcohol for the next beer, and vice versa. We do that a lot, changing the temperature to get different profiles from each beer. Without, for example, under-pitching the Sunshine Smile, of course, for the esters. For the blonde ale, over-pitch or typical normal pitch, and you get a much cleaner beer. So we're trying to work in a limited range with changing other factors, the temperatures and hops.
Yeah, but I suppose that's the whole key of it. You have to pick what you're going to limit and then just play around with the rest.
Yes.
Okay, well, listen, I've told you about an hour. We're already an hour and 20 minutes here, so maybe we should start finishing up and let you get back. I know you've got brewing to do. I don't know what, Miguel, are you brewing today?
No. It's too late in the day. Who's brewing, Paul or Etienne?
I was brewing.
Yeah, it's a long day. Oh, Paul. Oh, okay.
Yep.
It's a long day.
It was a nice session IPA, getting ready for summer. So, well, thanks for having our brewery, Brian, and Etienne and Miguel. This was a lot of fun. I always enjoy it.
Well, that's the key, is hopefully now you all have to visit each other's breweries and stuff, and you've all got to try each other's beers out. So it's always fun. I'm hoping that people will still be interested after the summer, when they might not be, they might not want to ever go online ever again, but I'm hoping they will, because I'm enjoying it. So.
We have as well. All through the pandemic, we did a lot of events online, and had whole different audiences, which is very important for our business model, and we hope it continues in the winter.
Because I want to continue doing these if people are interested, but who knows.
I listen to podcasts all the time, so I hope this is also one people will enjoy or benefit from. 3 totally different breweries, and I look hopefully to visit. We'd love to visit Huskie and Kaapse Brouw for sure.
Anytime. You're always welcome.
Yeah, and you're welcome here.
Excellent. Well, listen, guys, thanks a million. I'm just going to tell you that next week it's the last one I'm doing of these before summer, and I'm going to butcher this, but Puhaste from Estonia, and I'll probably butcher that. Malt Garden from Poland, and another German one that's actually very new, Skinny Bones. He's literally just started, so that could be interesting.
Great. Yeah.
So I'm going to just play out a little video for what we have next week and say thanks again. It was really enjoyed it. The hour and 22 minutes now have just flown by.
Yep.
So thanks a million, and let's see. Hopefully we get to visit each other at some stage, and we have a few beers there to finish drinking tonight anyway. So.
Yep. Anyone listening, please come by to our breweries. Happy to host you, and thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All right, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks a million.
Cheers.
Cheers.